First, I'm Mark Penn, CEO of Stagwell, which is a newly formed marketing company. We have about 10,000 people. We're in 68 cities, 30 countries, and I've put that together coming out of basically 40 years in which I worked in marketing, having founded a polling company, having then become part of WPP for a while, running Burson Marsteller, running a few presidential campaigns, if you guys go back that far, and before starting Stagwell with Steve Ballmer. And so we've come a long way in terms of building that company up. And today I'm chairman and CEO, and I'm here with...
Hi, I'm Jessica Spence. I'm president of brands at Beam Suntory. Beam Suntory is in predominantly the whiskey business. We're the third largest spirits business in the world, with a range of beautiful brands, including things like obviously Jim Beam, but also Maker's Mark, Courvoisier, Bowmore and Lefroy for you Scotch drinkers out there, and of course all of the Japanese whiskey portfolio. So I'm based here in New York. I came to that role from more than 16 years in beer, so in my husband's view, a really big upgrade, which was great. And have been mainly based across Europe, where I'm from originally, spent more than 5 years based out in Asia, looking after markets there, and now based here in New York with a global role.
Great, so we're gonna tackle a few general questions and then we'll get a little bit more specific. So in general, Jessica, what role do you think out-of-home plays in your channel mix when it comes to the categories that you've been working in?
I think this is really interesting. We were just chatting before about how do you think about out-of-home and how do you think about the category you play in and the kind of challenge you have. And Mark threw out this thing of like, well, are you milk or are you diapers? Which obviously when you're working in the spirits industry is a bit of a confusing question. But the logic of that was that actually, you know, you need to think very hard about sorry, it wasn't milk. Are you Coke or are you diapers? Milk comes into the story next. So if you're a Coke, you want to be in front of everyone. You just want to be pushing messages out there. You want to be as big as you possibly can. You're thinking very hard about reach. You know, all of us marketeers, we've been burned by micro-targeting, so we've got over that. That's one model. And then diapers, obviously, you've got a very specific target. You've got a group of people who, for a period of time, are extremely interested in your product, and there's a ton of people who just don't care. And I think that's where you kind of have to start. And that was very helpful, actually, for me in crystallizing us. We're definitely diapers. There's a lot of people who don't engage in the spirits industry. There's a lot of people who aren't interested and don't want to talk to us or hear from us. And we are, therefore, also very targeted. In the alcohol world, I guess beer is a Coke. Spirits are diapers. And for us, it plays a brilliant role because when we start thinking about building brands, we really strongly believe that the places you show up are your equity signals. So we talk about you build brands through experiences. Our brand building model is built on the thought that brands are just collections of memories that consumers have. And unfortunately, you can't control all of those memories, but you try hard. And one of them is, where did they see you? Where did they meet you? Which bar were you in? And most of you probably, for your favorite drink, will remember that bar. And that's why out-of-home for us plays such a critical role. When we're thinking about a brand launch, we will be literally going down to city blocks that we're interested in. We don't even look, you know, it's not the West Village. It's these 3 roads, or it's these 2 blocks in East Harlem. So for us, I think what we love about out-of-home is it has that ability to create that level of intimacy, to create that level of localization, but to do it in a way which has impact, which feels big. You know, our brands are often trying to feel bigger than they are a lot of the time. They want to feel part of culture. You know, brands in our category want to become iconic. And out-of-home is one of the rare spaces that I think you still get to do that. You know, it has a visual impact. It always has. There's obviously a ton of technology coming in that improves that, but it's got that punch. So for us, I think when we think about it, it's that combination of that localness, that closeness, that ability to target, you know, to think very hard about being diapers, not Coke, but couple it with some incredible creativity and visual impact that can build an iconic brand.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to work on. I developed this kind of Coke or diaper analogy for digital online marketing versus TV. So I'm gonna have to develop it for exactly, are you Apple or are you So I'm going to have to figure out the exact metaphor that works for out of home. But I think what Jessica is saying, well, if you're a challenger brand, out of home is a great place to kind of throw down the challenge. And look, to me, I think it's a great place to extend your campaign so that when you kind of think of a consumer, they go through a consumer journey, but they also go through a personal journey of coming from their home. You know, they used to go to work, they used to go to shopping, but you see traffic picking up considerably from the lows that it was. And so how do you both decide what kind of product you are, right? And the example earlier, if you were watching, Milk is one of our clients here, and they're making much greater use of out of home than they ever had in the past, because it's a great way to have impact, to challenge. And I think, you know, a big out of home usage in terms of Stagwell is we have about 3,500 screens in airports. And so we really hit the travel journey. So from the printing of the boarding pass, which is to the extent people print it still, which surprisingly most people don't want to, they're afraid they're going to run out of battery with the phone at the airport and get stuck and not be able to get past security. So we thought that no one was ever going to print out their boarding pass anymore, and they still print them out. And so from knowing that journey straight through the airports, where our screens and airports tend to be, we really have a TV channel behind it. So they tend to be more experiential, and we just recently signed up the NFL. So we've got the NFL games, because it really turned out that out of home was, when it was all news, was too divisive. And now it's going to be much more kind of lifestyle and bringing people into the experience. So our out of home experience is again growing in the digital. I hope we go from 3,500 screens to 35,000 screens, frankly. I think that communication to people through screens, particularly as people have come off of traditional television, I just think because it can be so incredibly targeted, is going to be an increasingly satisfying and efficient way to communicate with people, which goes into our second question, which is innovations in technology that have improved the efficiency of out of home. And I'll just give you my pre-answer to that is obviously the holy grail is you walk up to the screen, it knows who you are, and it fires the perfect ad to you, you know, in your imagination. And truthfully, I think we're going to get to that a lot sooner than driverless cars. I think we'll have self-identifying screens well in advance of that. I think already we pretty much know what kinds of people and what their habits are who are in a particular spot or area. And so I think the innovations you have are on the visual side, where I think you're going to see AR come into play, and then on the targeting side, where I think you're going to see, you know, identification and personal firing of ads. And then from our point of view, in like the airports, to us it's a seamless journey, where what you experience with the boarding pass to what maybe we get you with a screen on the car to the airport, we get you in the airport, and then we're developing materials for on the plane. So I do think that it's part of a journey that people go on. Let me turn it over to you on innovations you see, and then we'll get to some really good examples.
Yeah, I mean, I think this area has been fascinating because it's innovating so fast, and I think just listening to the panel before us as well, that the creative challenge that poses with your agencies is huge. There are very few creatives, I think, who can work across all of the different kind of canvases that you've got and who think about it. You know, as Mark says, that journey is incredibly complex, and knowing how you're going to deliver tailoring and personalization in a creative way at each of those points, I think is something that most clients, at least I hope most clients, otherwise it's just us, are really struggling to get their heads around and struggling to find the right agencies to support, because it's just progressing at a pace. I think from our perspective, you know, the nirvana for us is getting to a point where, as Mark says, we know who we're talking to, and we use every touch point as a moment in which we do a few things. We, of course, drive some messaging, some engagement. We collect data. We actually enrich our understanding of that person in a meaningful way. We make a sale where we can. You know, my marketing teams are sometimes a bit shy about that. Like, this is equity. I'm like, we're here to sell stuff. Yeah, you can do both. but also critically give people an ability to play an active role as an advocate. So what we're looking for is what technology is going to enable us to do that. And there are different ways that people are playing with, really, I think, looking at out-of-home as a portal. For us, it's a doorway. It's a very high impact doorway into a world where we can then move them around our ecosystem and gain all of those different benefits that we're looking for. I find it hugely entertaining, having lived in Asia for a bit, that people view QR codes as really exciting and terribly new. I had a wonderful moment with one of our senior management, who shall remain nameless, who was like, it would be great if we could just be like the first people on QR codes. I'm like, I think you missed that one by about a decade-ish. But I do think that it has been fantastic in terms of, blame the pandemic, triggering a ton of clients to realize the interactivity of out of home. And I know that sounds like we should have worked that out a really long time ago, but bluntly, most clients, particularly in kind of more traditional categories, haven't. So something as simple as the QR code, whilst it's very simple, it's very basic, has at least triggered a rethink on, I should not be thinking about out of home as a relatively one-way, even if not static, one-way media. And it's beginning to get your clients, hopefully, into a space where they're going, okay, this is an engagement point, this is a two-way. But the things I'm excited about are really when we get into AR. I think particularly for us, the possibilities that, and Mark was talking about it a bit before, so I'll hand over to him as well in a second, but the potential that has to create an experience which does all of those things that I'm looking to nail in that one moment, I think is fantastic. And I think will pull out of home away from a lot of other media. So I think that's the area that we're most excited about.
No, I think we've been looking very extensively at what kind of out-of-home marketplace will be created when you think of AR, either in terms of glasses or, until you get to glasses, basically how people hold their phone. I think that we're looking particularly at sporting events. So it's interesting because there'll be experiences now on top of experiences, and there will be ads on top of ads. So it's going to become a very complicated, layered impact. But I do believe that that's where we'll move. Just as I always believed that we've moved from typing to voice, I always believe that we're going to move now from experiencing things in our own eyes to experiencing things through an enhanced experience. And that is going to then create an enormous new, out-of-home marketplace. And if you have like 300 stores somewhere, and you're a team playing in 20 different locations, creating these common experiences and managing them all will be an incredible, digital task, even more complex than managing the physical screens. I know you brought some show and tell. I don't know if there's time if you want to.
We're down to, I'll do a quick brand plug because I kind of have to, I suppose. We're very Luddite by the standards of a lot of things you've seen today, but it's probably one of the most impactful brands we have. Hopefully many of you know this and you recognize the red wax, Maker's Mark. And Maker's Mark was built historically off incredible visuals of the wax. And this is where I think you look at out of home and you realize there's nothing else that does this. There's nothing else that creates this kind of visual impact. And that's before you've got into any exciting technology.
I love that. It's a pizza shot without the pizza.
Exactly. There's no liquid. It's just, but kind of makes you want to have a bourbon, doesn't it? Hopefully you're all feeling that. It's coming up to lunchtime. That may become more appropriate. But this was actually what we moved to. And this was where we hit gold. We'd always known that those big dynamic visuals were huge. This was actually something we did for the first time in Williamsburg. And we did it at the prompting of the local team because Maker's Mark is a brand that's all about authenticity and being handmade. And we said, well, I love those last visuals, but they kind of don't do that. And we painted this. You could see it. You had a beautiful Manhattan skyline behind you. And we suddenly started seeing equity and sales spiking in Williamsburg. It was one of the most direct correlations we had. And this was all we did. It was a wall that we bought very cheap, and we paid somebody not a ton of money to paint it and make it look like this. And that became the heart of how we thought about the brand and how we think about the brand building. And now every city we go in, as I said, we really literally think blocks. we go and we paint. It's very non-digital. It's very beautiful, in my view, but it's very local. And what we've now started to do is to play with this. This is all very basic, but obviously, as I said, couldn't get away without a QR code and a little bit of technology. We're now starting to build technology into these. So these are, I'm afraid, slightly less beautiful shots. These are pandemic-era shots, but versions that we did across Atlanta, across LA, Philadelphia, and New York, again, Williamsburg, where we started to play around with it more, but also allow people to engage. So you can engage through your phone. Again, we get our data capture. They get a shot now at Drizzly while they're standing there, which has been phenomenally impactful. And generally, we can get that home to them within half an hour. So if they're walking home, it's there almost ready and waiting for them. And we know exactly who they are because they have chosen to engage. They've often chosen to share this. We get phenomenal viral reach with these. And it's starting to build out an ecosystem. So it's just an example of how something very old school, very, very basic, staying absolutely true to the visual impact, can start to pivot into something which I think will grow and become technologically much more interesting and exciting for us. So quick one to end on, plug for the brand. It's one of my favorites.
And so that we'll wrap up and be good citizens. Of course, for people who know me, I think it wouldn't be complete without a last word about how the political marketplace is really about the fastest growing advertising marketplace, growing at a 61% CAGR. And so actually out of home has an incredible hyper local impact on political and the ability that it could run and expand there. And we have created a whole media division on political. So I think it's the kind of thing that we can take to the out of home. And lastly, I was chatting with Jessica when I was at Microsoft, when I had all advertising, we were running one particular campaign. So the other great impact of out of home is we just bought all of the billboards outside Google headquarters. And then we doubled down on all the Silicon media. And they thought we were running like $150 million campaign that was everywhere. So you can give the everywhere appearance, or you can do the opposite and really be hyper local to incredible effectiveness. And I think this is, Jessica, some brilliant and wonderful work. And thank everybody for your time and attention. Look forward to a good one.